Have the inspections. Now, what is next step that the buyer need to know when you have the inspection? You renegotiate for incentive or if possible, and then what is the next step that a buyer need to expect in the process?
The next step, I think, is appraisal, because they want to know how much their house is that value, 500,000, when they pay for 500,000.
The lender will work with the buyers to let the buyer know what they need to do to turn in all the paperwork, W-2, 1099 forms, all that good stuff. And then 10 days before closing, technically, they will order an appraisal. If you go with the lender, you have to pay for that appraisal so that the lender know how much that house value. So that way, either our goal is to get it at the price or above, so that way you have equity in the house. But that is the requirement.
If you buy cash, should do an appraisal or not? Because an appraisal now, I know it costs about $700-800 or more, depends on how big the house is. So if it's cash, do they need to do that, or do
if they do cash,
it doesn't involve the lender?
They don't have to, but they should. I think they should.
You don't have to, but you should. Yes, you should, because then you know how much your house is worth. Is if you overpay or underpay, right? So then if you go sell it to the next buyer, you can say, hey, this house was worth 800, I pay 500 for it, so it's got 300 equity in it already.
Should you buy home insurance then? If now, like you're a cash buyer.
If you have a loan, you have a mortgage, yes. You have to. If you don't have a loan and you've just cash, you have to still, because, we never know what's going to happen. It doesn't need to be hurricane, it doesn't need to be flood, it could be fire.
When
something
you're cooking,
go wrong, yeah.
You barbecue something and you can burn the house.
We're talking about a lot of the buyer in the process. So next step, when you go to closing, what are the things that the buyer can do to prepare to go to closing?
Moving, packing. I guess the final walkthrough is the last step in the process. That if I have a local buyer, I would take them with me. We schedule that final walkthrough the day before we sit down and sign, to make sure everything is in place. There's no holes in the walls, there's no holes in the roof, and I'm just making that up, but never do we have that issue. If we have an out-of-town buyer, then I would walk the house by myself and I would take picture or record a video to show my buyers, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and you are good to go ahead and sign it. I will hold on to the keys, and whenever that buyer fly into town, will meet up with me, and then I will hand the key over to the buyers.
Have you ever experienced your final walkthrough with a house is a mess or not ready move in as promised? What did you do, or what are some examples?
A couple of different situations. Sometimes the seller asks to stay after closing, and we know that ahead of time. So we would put it in the contract that it would be 2 days or 3 days after closing, because they need packing or moving. Then we would hold some money in escrow on the day of closing and make sure that that money is being held there, almost like a retainer fee, so that the day that they move out 3 days after, and we go check to make sure there's no damages. If there is, then we're going to use that money to pay for the damages. But if we don't know that ahead of time and they come in and they stay, then I will be basically camp out by the front door to make sure that they actually move out and clean up. But I have to talk to the seller agent to make sure that they know what their seller is doing or not doing to deliver the house on time, and work with that seller agent, particularly to make sure that we can get that house ready to deliver it to our buyers in time.
I went to a final walkthrough one time, and the seller agreed to repair the AC. But on that day, I walked back and I say, well, what's going on with the AC? No cold air. Then I call the agent and say, hey, closing about 3 days from now. So what's going on with the AC? And the agent said, oh, the seller forgot to fix it. So really? So now they have to fix before we can close. So that's the final step before you sign your document. It's very important. You make sure they prepare what they promise you.
So final walkthrough is very important, and also if the seller asks to stay after closing, a good agent would then know how to ask for a holdback of escrow in the fund, so then they can fix or repair anything or any damages that the seller left behind. right?
Absolutely.
For your team being the local here in Jacksonville, have you heard of any big development in Jacksonville area?